and it's 11:05. Let's get rolling. Let's start with Stellarium. It's going to be the most difficult part of our display, and so let's just get it out of the way now. So we're displaying one, and we will go over to Stellarium again. So those of you who have used Stellarium, let me know. What I'm going to talk about is how I use it concurrent with all the stuff I do in PhotoPills. I can use both and benefit from both, even though really Stellarium is less powerful for Milky Way planning than PhotoPills. In astrophotography, is it better to put noise reduction on or off? Absolutely off. You don't want any in-camera noise reduction going on because any of that you can take care of in post. As long as you're taking your shots in RAW, you'll be able to fix all of that in post, and in some situations you won't even need to. For instance, a very large panorama. You won't even notice the noise, the slight random noise that's going on in there. So just have your ISO noise reduction off, have your long exposure noise reduction off, have all of those off in camera before you go. Thanks, Ro, for the question. All right, let's talk about Stellarium. So as you can see right now, it's showing me tonight, July 7th. Oh, I let it run for so long, it's already gone to July 16th. And so July 16th, the Milky Way is going to look like this. If I look directly south, I'll see it. If I change this to a different time and date, we'll see. Let me back up. Stellarium. Stellarium app is free. You can find it at stellarium.org. And when you install it on your computer, it's a full screen window, and it has a few options down here that are a little confusing if you haven't used them before. I'm going to turn on the date time window so that I can change the month. So you can quickly see how Stellarium is very powerful for seeing what will the Milky Way look like in March versus April. Let's see. At this time in March, the Milky Way isn't even above the horizon until really 3 a.m. In my location in Orem, Utah, I can't see the Milky Way Core until 3 a.m. So Stellarium is an awesome, quick way to first-person visualize as if I was standing on the ground where everything is in the sky. And so I can see the moon is right here, and over here's the core. That's probably going to be an issue. And so I change my dates, and I get to see how fast the moon moves across the sky. And then it's away from the Milky Way. So now I know, 2017, March 22nd, here's the core. It's visible without the moon in the way. So Stellarium has that benefit. I like to pull back, just scroll back on the scroll wheel on your mouse, and you can see the whole horizon as if you had a 180 view. And then I like to see different times of the year. What's the Milky Way doing? And you can see that bizarre shape that it takes in the sky, and how as it gets towards 3 a.m. in July, it's more vertical. But right at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, you still have that 45-degree angle. So this is a great way to see, okay, this time of year, at this location, this is what the Milky Way is going to look like. If I set up my location window to be somewhere else in the southern hemisphere, you can see that I have a much different sky. It's crazy how cool it is in the southern hemisphere, where you get that awesome crown jewel of the Milky Way, the core at the top of the sky. Never seen it that way myself. It's a bucket list item. So Stellarium is fantastic for this first-person view. I use it to know, okay, the moon in the way, is this okay? And then extra elements. I moved myself to a completely different location in the world. Let me go back to the current location. Oh, uncheck that. Return to default location. Let's go back into Utah. I'm going to go American Fork right now just to keep it simple. Looking at today's date, if you hit this button down in the middle at this lower shelf that pops out, this is going to take you to the current time. Right now, my settings are that I have the atmosphere turned off. So the current time is daytime, and I can actually watch Stellarium. It won't go very well on the stream. It won't be a very smooth animation, but you can see the sun set and then the Milky Way rise, sunset and the Milky Way rise. You can use that if you're interested to see how it moves across the sky for, say, a time lapse. So it's 11:10. Let's go ahead and tackle a couple things that are cool about Stellarium and move on. Any questions so far? I am going quickly through how I use Stellarium, so I understand that this is quick. But you can always listen to this again and ask me questions as we're going along. So back to Stellarium, one of my favorite features is to find the International Space Station on here. I can't do that with PhotoPills. It won't tell me where the International Space Station is. So I go over here, I go to my search window, and I go to International, it wants me to type in Zarya. ISS or Zarya will find the International Space Station. So then, let's find it. And it's right here. If we make time go by, we're just going to follow it. Okay, there's a perfect example. And that's even on this July 17th. So we're following the International Space Station across the sky. That's why it's folding the view, because it's making the International Space Station the center point. Let's go back to tonight and go forward, and let's see if the International Space Station comes above the horizon enough for us to actually see it. And, oh, it blipped. I'm going back. You couldn't see it, but I could see a blip. Oh, it's so quick. And the reason why there's this blip of light is because the International Space Station is getting lit by the sun, but over us at a dark time. And that's the key time to actually capture the International Space Station in a shot. Right after sunset, right before sunrise, usually within an hours of that time, the International Space Station will be in sight of the sun, getting light reflected off of it, and be above you in the dark where you can see it light up. Now I've gone really slow backwards to see if I can see that blip again. Let's find it. And there, that blip is way too quick to show you. But for instance, if you go to, I should have this. I'll have this in the link for you guys later. But there's a website that the NASA puts up that lets you see where the International Space Station is going to be, and can even send you text messages and say, it's going to be in your sky coming from this point in the west. It'll be 2 minutes over you, and then it'll go down in the southeast or something. It'll tell you what direction it's coming over you and where it's going to come from, so you can plan your shot. And that's when I go to Stellarium to say, okay, International Space Station shot, I want to capture it. What's it going to look like? And if we had any luck right now and we could see one, you'd see one kind of come across the west and go down, or it would barely duck up above and then duck down below. It's tough to capture, and so you just got to wait for the perfect one, a nice long one, or being in the location that you want it to be. Just keep a lookout. Stellarium is fantastic for that. Frank Crispo saw it. He saw the blip. I'm glad that it wasn't impossible for you guys to see with the low frame rate that happens here with Stellarium. So Stellarium helps me know International Space Station and other celestial events. And other celestial events I mean by all of these awesome, weird, fuzzy things in the sky. The blue ones, the yellow ones. These are meteor showers, and there's always a meteor shower going on throughout the year. But this one will tell you where the radiant is for the meteor shower. And so you get an idea. Over here towards this constellation, you're going to see the meteor shower of the Southern Aquarids, and typically they're named for the constellation that they're in. And so I use this to recognize comets, meteor showers, International Space Station, and just have a first-person view of what the Milky Way and Moon are doing. It just helps me see it, visualize it, and it's just fun, especially since it's free. Why not? All right, any questions before I turn off Stellarium? I should play our astrophotog music while we're waiting for questions. Oh, so is the space station basically reflecting like the moon? Yeah. Basically, the face of the space station that's being lit by the sun is visible to us when that happens. The space station's always being lit by the sun, typically until it's right behind the Earth or behind the Earth when the sun's on the opposite side, and then it's in the shadow of the Earth. But since it orbits the Earth every 90 minutes, it's always going in and out of the shadow and the light, shadow and the light. And so you're just hoping that from your location on the Earth to where the International Space Station is, that you get a moment when the sunlight is hitting it. And you want it to be at night because in the day you just don't see it. Any other questions? Let's see, it's 11:15, going well. Going once, twice, and since there's a delay, I'm also going to wait a second. My favorite thing about the International Space Station is when it goes high in the sky and gives me a lot of options, but then that's a really tough time lapse or a really tough long exposure. So when it just goes up over the horizon then comes back down, that's a shot I'm in trying to capture. I haven't set it up yet, but I'm excited for it, where I can get a cool object and see it dip up and then disappear, and that's going to be cool. So I don't see there's any questions. Let's move on. Let's get rid of Stellarium. All right, I am okay with removing that display. Cool. So now you guys should see my PhotoPills app, and then you should see my screen and the live dashboard for us talking. Okay. Here we go. PhotoPills. If you've watched the video already that I gave, you know I talked about the Moon app and the Planner app. Those are the two things that I use to plan for the Milky Way. Does Stellarium run slow if you don't have a really good computer? No, that's not really the case. It has a hard time communicating to this OBS software that's recording the screen for you guys, but I've never noticed it run slow. If your computer can open up Google Earth, it can open up Stellarium. It does have a 3D camera element, but there's not a lot of assets that are too crazy or resource intensive for your computer. So Tobias, you should have no trouble with it. It's a free app. Go try it. See if you like it. It's also available on mobile devices. It's just the Milky Way looks better on the desktop version. The Milky Way on the mobile device is kind of crappy. It at least tells you where it is, though. All right, so PhotoPills. This is a quick reminder of everything I said in the video. I'm going to go fast. I'm going to let you guys ask questions. So hit me up with questions now while I go through this. So I start in the moon section. For instance, this weekend, we're going to go out during the new moon and go up to Mir Lake. We're hoping that the nights are clear and we can invite other people up there. If you've seen our Facebook post, if you're in the Utah area, you can join us at Mir Lake, and we're going to be up there for Friday night or Saturday night, depending on clouds. And we'll talk more about how the clouds go here. So I swear I put on Do Not Disturb mode. I wonder why that text came through. So here in the Moon app, I go to the night that I want to go, and it's July 21st. This is going to be tough to read. Try refresh. It start. Oh, Chris Perry has it started. I can't see anything. Chris, I hope you're joining us. No matter what, you're probably seeing the DVR version of the beginning. Just refresh and you'll see this. I'm sorry you've been waiting for 30 minutes and missed this. Hopefully you can see it. Everyone else can see the screen, so I don't think there's any tech issues. Sorry, Chris, that you missed it on your iPad. I don't know why YouTube would do that. It seems like it should have worked fantastic. So here we are on the PhotoPills app. Chris, we just covered Stellarium. Don't worry, you'll be able to see everything in the replay like you said. So PhotoPills app at the moon, I like to see specifically, okay, what time is the moon going down? And if you have a PhotoPills app on a phone, you're going to see it in this view. In my video, I showed it on an iPad view. I scroll down, here's the sunrise, oh, here's the moonrise, and then I keep going, sunset, oh, moonset. It's hard to even recognize the moonset on a new moon because it's a big blue circle instead of something like this where you see an actual moon picture. It goes to blue, light blue, if it is a new moon. That's why that color is there. So the moon set is 7:19 on July 21st. The sun won't even set until 8:49. And then it says the galactic center visibility starts, and you can't tell this, but it's at 10:45 p.m. So inside the Moon app, I'm able to see Moon is set, and the galactic core visibility starts at 10:45. Why is it 10:45? If you haven't heard about the astronomical periods, the astronomical twilight periods happen once the sun is setting, and basically as the sun sets more and more degrees beyond the horizon of the curve of the Earth, you have different astronomical twilights. Starts out with civil, then has nautical, then has astronomical, and then it's full darkness. You can actually see these really quickly in the Planner app. All you got to do is zoom entirely out from your image. So I'm going to let my app refresh the map, and there we go. You can see how as I move the time at the bottom here, this orange line and light blue line and gray blue line and purple blue line to darkness occurs. If you ever heard about people in Alaska that say that it never gets fully dark, well, look at Alaska on this map. As I scrub it throughout the night, you can see the sunset orange going across it. Can you? Yeah, not too bad. It's not great, but it's not too bad. You can see the orange line going across it, and then a blue, and then there's some areas that barely even get civil twilight. The middle area, this middle color of blue, that's the nautical twilight. That's what's covering part of Juneau, it looks like, and then that long elephant trunk of Alaska. And that's it. That's all the distance the sun has ever dipped under the horizon for those areas. It isn't visible. It's below the horizon, but there's still light. So the astronomical twilight periods will affect your view of the Milky Way. And so when you're in the Moon app and it tells you that the galactic core is visible at 10:52, it's not because the galactic core just rose. It's because the astronomical twilight has just ended, and now it's showing you where the Milky Way is. Because the astronomical twilight has gone, it's full darkness, now you can more easily see the Milky Way. You can still see it in astronomical twilight. You can kind of see it in nautical on the very core. Civil, I don't think I've had a picture that showed it really, because I think it's just way too bright, but just depends if you're on the opposite side of the sky. Early in the season where the Milky Way is rising over on the east and the sun's over there, you could potentially somewhere on Earth get it to work out possibly in civil to recognize that it's there. But the big important thing to know is that you want to capture your images when its astronomical twilight has ended and now you're in full darkness. So I see a few more texts. Looks like it's just Chris Perry frustrated that his app wasn't working. That's too bad. I'm sorry, Chris. That sucks. So I'm also sorry, Chris, I don't have any video. I'm kind of here. Hi. Oh, my hat's blocking it. It didn't work to show you my face underneath my camera. The only choice I had was to show you this and show you my screen. And so we just had to compromise. So then if I load on the Moon app that this is when the Milky Way core is visible, I know, okay, the moon has set. I'm actually going to have no moonlight in the way, and I'm going to have the core starting to be seen at 10:52. Well, when does the core stop being visible? I'm going to have to go to the next day if I've come all the way down here. Looks like that's the end of the day. It only goes from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. the next day. So you get a 24-hour period in this little guide. Those of you who have used the Planet app, the Planet app doesn't stop on day to day. It just has a long timeline that shows you as it goes from day to day to day. And so that's one benefit of the Planet app. Let's go over one day. Here's Saturday now. And when is the Milky Way going to stop being visible? So I have jumped all the way back to today. So let's go Friday the 21st, now Saturday. Okay. 12 a.m., no event until 3:18 a.m., and I see the galactic center, the visibility ends. So one benefit, if you can see on here, that the Milky Way core is a different shape than it was when it became visible. This is also an instant view of what the direction the Milky Way core will be angled. Right now it's at a 45 at the beginning of its visibility, and then before it sets, it's going to be so vertical that it's tilted tilted over. And so right now you have an opportunity to get a 45-degree angle Milky Way and a Milky Way that's vertical before the night is up and before the moon ever rises and get in the way. So why, when the moon rises at 5:25 a.m., will 3:18 be the last time you can see the galactic center? If you're paying attention to astronomical twilight periods, you know that that's probably when astronomical twilight begins and starts washing out the view of the galactic center. So then once I know that the moon's not going to be in my way, now for instance, let's go to today. Today is Saturday, July 15th. It's not a new moon, but can I see the Milky Way? Can I actually go out tonight and capture the Milky Way? Well, let's see, sunset, and then, oh, cool. You know what? The moon sets before the sun. It will actually set, and then it rises at 10:52. So the moon doesn't set quite yet until midnight. Let's see how early it'll rise in the morning, Sunday morning. It rises at 12:47 a.m. So now I know that from 12:47 a.m. back to 10:52, I have a time period where the Milky Way is not going to be blocked by the moon, despite being this much of a waning gibbous. This is a waning gibbous moon. It's huge. It's very illuminated. It's 64% illuminated. That would block out your Milky Way. But because it doesn't rise so late in the morning, you don't have to worry about it for at least 2 hours. You don't have anything blocking your path. Go out tonight. Go capture a Milky Way. So Tobias had a question. Kirk was pointing out I must have missed it. Sorry, man. Oh, nope, Kirk, I actually answered that question. That Stellarium won't run slow if you don't have a really good computer. As long as you can run Google Earth, I'm pretty certain you can run Stellarium. Frank Crispo, will that change depending where in the Northern Hemisphere you are? Yeah, the crazy thing is, right here in Orem, if I go to my closest dark sky site, that's out at the silo. It's about 45, 50 minutes from me. If I drive here to there, I go from this position. Let me draw it here. I go from this position right here in Orem, and I go to the east. Or no, the west. And because of the west and the way that the earth is curved and the way that the sun is rising, the time period will change by even a minute or two just in that small of distance. So you'll have astronomical periods start later the more west you go, from at least compared to the point that you were at in your original check. So all of these data points change completely depending on the location on the earth that you are standing. And if you're going to go somewhere and say, find out, what would it be like? I'm going to go on vacation to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I'm going to go into Edmonton. I'm going to hold down my pin. Come on, cooperate. And now I'm in Edmonton. And I can see that in Edmonton that these astronomical periods are never transitioning to full darkness. That's such a disappointment. So I can see quickly, okay, while tonight I can see the Milky Way here in Utah, I can't the more northern I go. In fact, Seattle it has a little bit of darkness. I don't know if you can see that, but Kirk, he's a buddy of mine. He's on here. He's in Portland. He gets a full darkness period, and Seattle barely. But even Vancouver does not. At this time of year, it just skirts the actual full darkness, and it stays in astronomical twilight the whole time. So yeah, it changes depending on your location. Thanks for that question, Frank. So it's 11:28. We've mentioned 2 of the apps. I haven't finished PhotoPills. Ask any questions you guys want. Pump them out there on the live chat, and I'll keep an eye on them. Now that we're in the Planner app, I want to show you how I use the Planner app. So let's just navigate to the silo. So here I am in Orem. I'm going to go past Eureka, and I'm going to go up this highway that heads towards, what's it called? City called Vernon. So if you're in this area, that's how you get there. And the silo, I have navigated to it so many times I recognize, that was that white spot. How am I still getting notifications? What's the use of Do Not Disturb? So here we are. There's the silo. You can see the shadow that it casts when the sun's at this angle. If I wanted to capture the silo, and let's say I wanted to come on this side of the tracks, let me put my pin there. Tonight, let's make sure it is tonight. If I double tap underneath the time right here, it'll move me right to the time right now, 11:29 a.m. today. So I scrub this over to the night period and boom, okay. So if I were to stand right there, let's see, this is terrible. Oh. The camera turned off for a second on you guys. I looked up to make sure that that camera was working out, and it turned off on us. So let's just go ahead and get that window capture back up. So apologies for that. Let's just, it's source, okay. And why is that not being recognized? Okay, let's go back to it. So any questions come up while I fix this, I'm just going to get it back on over to live view shoot over my EOS app and then get it visible again. I'm not sure why it would go into a standby mode, but that's fine. We'll fix it. Any questions about what we've talked about so far? And okay. And now let's pull this over. Oops, not like that. Let's make it big still. So I'm just navigating this over, shrinking it down, making it so you don't see all the distracting other elements. And move this over, distracting elements again. And pull up, nope, I want it as big as possible. Okay, so now you can see my phone again. I believe that's the case. Let me know, guys, if you actually aren't seeing my phone. That was a bummer that it turned off on us. So what I did want to do is make sure that all my settings were allowing you to see the light screen on the planner. On the Moon app, what I had it set for was okay, but not on here. So now it's very dark, but at least you can see. So when you have the Milky Way, this dotted line is your arch of the Milky Way. And standing precisely here, you know that if you look this way, you're looking at the core, you look straight ahead, you're looking out at the middle of the Milky Way and up that direction, which is north, you're going to see Cassiopeia and the other end of the Milky Way. Oh, thanks, Frank, for confirming that I'm good. I'm not sure why the camera turned off there. So here we are at the silo. If I want to plan a shot using this, I'm going to wait. Oh, okay. So see how it was blue and then it goes to a flat dark color right here? That's full darkness. So in the planner app, you've got these visual cues saying, hey, right now, at this point on the time slider that you're moving and scrubbing back and forth, you're within golden hour, you're within daylight, you're within nighttime. And right now, I'm in nighttime. And if I look at it in nighttime, the Milky Way, you see how the arc is kind of at an orange slice away from the center point instead of all the way out on the full outer part of this ring. That's because it's pretty vertical. You can see how it starts out low and then tips towards the upper part of the middle, and now it's lined up exactly. That means it's perfectly vertical in the sky. If you change up at this top part, you can't see my finger very well, but if you change your screen at the top part, come on, you can see different options and different data points. I like to have the Milky Way window up. You can see this graphic, tiny little circle on the screen, but on the top left of that, you can see the Milky Way. You can see how it changes its diagonal or its angle. You can see it change its angle as I scrub through the time. So if you wanted to plan a shot that's exactly vertical, this is how you make sure that you see that vertical right there. And like, okay, perfect. But now you also know that if I were to stand right there on that side of the silo, my vertical Milky Way would not even see the silo. Say I was shooting from that position directly at the core, I wouldn't even see the silo. So I need to stand over here. Let's see if I can get my pin to move. I showed you how you can hold your finger down anywhere and the pin, it moves sometimes, not 100% of the time, but we can also use this button that lets an X be where your pin's going to go down, and you hit the red button again, and then you can fine tune exactly how you want to stand. So say I was really in love with the idea of having the silo on the left and the vertical Milky Way on the right. Using this part of the PhotoPills app, I can make sure it's there. Now, these are things that I covered in the video I already made. Yeah, Nevada X-Tube, I made mistake of letting Brendan take the other 50, but I also have a mistake of not having a better zoom lens for this situation. If I had a better zoom lens, I can zoom in on it, but right now my option is full screen and then coming and cropping it tight on the phone. So we're a little stuck in the small screen. If it helps and you guys don't mind not seeing exactly what your phone looks like, I can make it really big using my iPad. And so this is what I prefer to do my own planning on. Unfortunately, it's so big, it's outside of the entire screen. Well, right now, I'm taking up only some of the screen. Let's just use all of it. And pull this over. So let's just do that so that you guys can see it in a better situation. So here's the planner on an iPad. You can see it's actually quite convenient on an iPad compared to an iPhone. You have all your data on the right constantly. You have a big window in the middle, and then you have a fatty slider to scrub the time down here at the bottom. So let's just double tap to right now, that middle part. And that's better from Kirk, so hey, let's just do it this way. I at least showed people something different than the PhotoPills app because I showed you what it looked like on the iPhone, but I'm happy to bail on that, that's for sure. So this is, I think it's Mir Lake. Oh yeah, it's Mir Lake. You can see this area where you park. Those of you who actually are also coming this next Friday or Saturday, depending on when the clouds cooperate, we'll look at that in a bit. You're going to meet us here in this parking lot. You're going to walk up this path. You're going to follow around this path, and then we're going to go to this cove. Why this cove? You can see it just in this picture. The satellite image shows it, that there's chop. There's a lot of chop in the waves, and then this harbor, the wind gets blocked by these trees, the water's shallow, there's not as much movement within the water itself, and it's only wind movement, and it just gets lighter winds, lighter movement, and it's great for a vertical Milky Way, or I'm sorry, a reflected Milky Way in the scene. So we're going to stand somewhere right here. And if we go to the next new moon, here's a trick that I learned from the PhotoPills team. I was talking to Rafael Pons, and he says, you just tap your Milky Way button, and it goes to the next segment or the next station, the next phase of the moon. And it just so happens that the next phase of the moon is the new moon on the 23rd. Now, the night that we're going to be there is the 22nd or the 21st. So let's just go back to the 21st. At night, you can see from that position, the Milky Way is going to be visible at a 45-degree angle from that position, and it's going to transition to an awesome vertical Milky Way here. Now that you can see the screen a little bit more, in fact, I'm going to brighten it a little bit more for this iPad screen. I think we can see more if we go there. Yeah, that's a better ISO. Okay, so here you can see gray lines. Gray line here and gray line there. What does that mean? This is a quick way to know where is the Milky Way going to be visible in my terrain throughout the time that it's visible. The moment that it becomes visible after astronomical twilight ends, you see that boom, astronomical blue to full darkness, gray, black. And then it goes throughout the night and all the way up until astronomical twilight, or I like to call it astronomical dawn, you will see it to that point. Now, in this case, it's not so much that it's astronomical dawn. I was talking earlier about it most likely was astronomical dawn, but in this case it isn't. The difference is, in my location, at my latitude on the Earth, the Milky Way core will actually dip back down under the horizon. And it does it at 322, 321, something around 311. It'll actually dip down there. So that's another reason why you can't see the Milky Way. But the good news, if you don't mind the core not being in the shot, you still have opportunity to shoot up until astronomical twilight at Yeah, it looks like about 413, 415. So we have more time there, but you can't see the core. So this gray line is telling me in this situation that it's the core. And it's not just that astronomical twilight has come and taken it away. So these gray lines, if you look in PhotoPills app, you'll see a white line, a blue line, a white line, yellow line, blue line, orange line, blue line, and gray lines. Gray lines are for Milky Way visibility timeline, and then you have a moon timeline, the light blue and the dark blue for moonrise and moonset, and then you've also got a sunrise and a sunset. And you can also see these times over here at the same colors: yellow for sunrise, orange for sunset, light blue for moonrise, dark blue for moonset. All this information is quickly available right here on the app. So, question. Peyton, our intern, it's so sad. He is in Washington State right now with his grandma. Hey, Peyton, I'm really sorry to have you be gone too. We missed you, especially the last live broadcast. So we got 20 minutes left. I've taken up too much time on PhotoPills. Any questions? I want to get through the next two parts and also give you time to ask questions. If for any reason you guys are still here at the point of noon, I'm not going anywhere. I don't have to leave. You can still ask me questions. We'll stretch this out until 12:30 at the most. So don't go anywhere if you want to ask any questions. But I'm giving you some time. I'm just kind of jabbering so that, hey, Peyton, so that I can actually wait for your question to pop up here, as there is that delay. La la la. I can't wait to go to Mir Lake. It is going to be awesome as long as the clouds cooperate and we can see the Milky Way core. I don't care if there's clouds on the right and left of the horizon. Just don't be on the core. We're going to have some awesome shots that night, and we're going to have an opportunity to teach some people how to do it. So I'm excited. Which month of the year is the core of the Milky Way highest above the horizon? That's entirely based on your latitude. The further south you go from, say, my latitude here in Orem, Utah, you're going to have the Milky Way core much higher. I mean, so it depends on how far south you want to travel. You can make it really high in the middle of July. But in my location, the core, in a weird way, from my just memory, and I could be wrong because I haven't done any measurements, I feel like the core is actually higher in the sky earlier in the year, as it's at its 45, at that time when you can make the full panorama arc shot of the Milky Way. That's when it's fantastic, and the core is way high up there, and you see a lot of the right side of the core that we in the Northern Hemisphere won't typically see a lot of. And then as the season goes on, let me use my hand, as the season goes on and it gets higher, the Milky Way core, say it's my knuckle, it's high like this, but then it's like hugging the horizon and does this sort of verticalness and then ducks down below as the rest of the Milky Way kind of sets. So I wonder if it's actually higher then, like it seems to me, than it is when it's in its pure vertical state right now in July. So I'll have to check on that, Nevada. I believe in my situation it is earlier in the year, but that's only based on just what it feels like. Tobias Yoder, hey, what is it that marked the core visibility? Okay, it's the gray lines. The gray lines on here are the core visibility. You can see how astronomical twilight ends, and so core visibility begins on that gray line, and then it ends over here once it actually drops down, in this case, to a lower part of the horizon. Actually goes below the horizon. So whenever you see, you can see this information right there. That's Milky Way core visibility. Say you're looking at your app. I don't know if the iPad app will do it. Okay, it does. So if you're on the iPad app or the iPhone app and you don't see those gray lines, you need to tap this icon. You might have a situation like a friend of mine had where she couldn't see them. She saw only this, only sunrise and sunset information. So you have to tap that and turn it back on for everything, or you can turn off everything else like the sun and the moon and focus just on the Milky Way information. And that's just this square that has that graphic. It's crazy that these are buttons. I didn't realize so many of these were buttons before I talked to Raphael. Assuming your location for the core. Brandon Madsen says, will this post to watch later after this is done being live? Absolutely, Brandon. I'm going to keep this live for everyone to come see. I only wish that I could have filmed myself in it and made it a nice polished video. But hey, it's a webinar. You can hear my voice and you can see my hands. I have Italian sausage fingers. I don't have glamorous iPhone commercial hands, but you know, it works. So let's see, any questions that I'm forgetting? No, let's bail on PhotoPills. You know what, we've talked about it a lot. Ask me questions, specific questions later about that. So get out of my way, PhotoPills app. Let's see these other parts of the screen. In fact, I am just going to kill that window capture. Let's do it. All right, full screen. Okay. We haven't talked about this yet in any of our videos. I'm really excited about this. Sorry to yell at you guys. I am excited to finally show you personally how to use Clear Dark Sky and how to use Darkside Finder. Let's start with Darkside Finder. Because you're deciding on a location that you want to go, but you don't know if it's going to be dark enough for you. Let's go to Darkside Finder. You'll see, I don't know why they do this. I mean, the whole purpose people come here is for the map, and yet you've got to scroll down, find this tiny map icon. There's nothing else. It's just that tiny map icon or a map button at the top menu. And then it still doesn't take you there. It takes you to the button that says open map. Who designed this? I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, Darkside Finder could open up to this. This is all it ever should do. You can see the misery that is the EU and the east coast of the United States. And for some reason, this area in Russia. I don't even know why. And so you've got this crazy light bloom in all these areas. And then you come to the lucky people over here on the west coast, where we can see a lot of beautiful sky. All these dark black blobs, those are the darkest areas that you can see, that you can actually go to and have the least amount of light pollution blocking your path. In fact, it's the same Bortle scale as the middle of the ocean. So it's crazy dark in those locations. So how do you read this? How do you best use it to your benefit? And okay, cool. He's asking about the solar eclipse. Peyton, we are going to go to it, but it's probably not going to be the whole team with the Extreme Space Adventures guys. We haven't heard from them. We're not sure what's going on. So say in my area here in Utah, you got this corridor here that we call the I-15 corridor, where tons of population, it's caused tons of light pollution, and you just can't see the Milky Way. But I want to give you a quick example of how the color, don't treat the color of this Bortle scale as an absolute. It isn't going to say, if you're standing in orange, you will not see the Milky Way. I took a shot right here in a neighborhood. I think I drove even up into this section. I wanted to see if I could capture the Milky Way from here. But in this situation, the Milky Way was over on this side. And so I was standing here looking through all of this light pollution to see the Milky Way. And all of the light bloom completely blew up the sky. It was crazy white. Hey, Kirk says that it's the natural gas burning off from oil wells in Russia. Really? That's nuts. I mean, that whole section is a very low population, but it's crazy light polluted. So if I'm standing here, I can't see the Milky Way because I'm looking through light pollution to see the Milky Way. But down here in Payson, standing in the same orange, I was inside this orange and I was outside, I could see the Milky Way. But why? Because if you stand in an area, now let's just back up a little bit. Black is the darkest, light pollution is white, and then red, oranges to yellows to greens. Those are the really light polluted areas. And then the greens, the blues to purples to gray. Those are the nice colors that have great skies. I'm standing here in Payson filming this direction. I'm looking out over, not only away from this bloom and away from the brightest bloom of the orange section, but over a big expanse of purple and blue and even this gray purple. So I am able to see the Milky Way from here with my naked eyes. I could drive down I-15 and see the Milky Way if it's a cloudless night, and see the Milky Way over here. Will it be perfect? Will it be amazing? No. It's not going to be a perfect Milky Way. In fact, I might as well just show you what I'm talking about. So right here, Aaron's pics, you can see, where are you? Payson Temple. This shot was taken in that area in Payson. So if I go to here, you see Payson, you see this icon, Payson Utah Temple. I'm standing next to this, looking this way, and you can see how much Milky Way I was able to pull out. But that same night, I went out to, let's see, this area where I captured the silo, and look at the Milky Way there. It's a million times different because I drove from this orange area, went through this, came across right here on the 6, came across Eureka, and now I'm in an area that is purple. And I'm looking out. My hand is invisible. I'm looking out over an area that's not only purple, but dark purple to gray. And so there isn't any light pollution affecting me here. Hence, I'm able to capture a far more crisp, nicer looking Milky Way. So, in a light pollution situation, say you're over here in the East Coast, and you live in Alabama. Well, Alabama's probably not an example because this is a pretty good stretch of area. Let's use this smaller one. Newton, probably couldn't work in Newton and Forest and Bay Springs, but if you stepped on this side of Forest, on this side of Newton, and looked out over these lower light pollution areas, you'll see the Milky Way. If you stood here, you could see it. If you stand over here, you won't see it. This bloom will be between you and the Milky Way. So emphasize on being on the side of the light pollution that's away from the light pollution, facing the Milky Way. Does that make any sense? Don't put the light bloom between you and the Milky Way as much as you possibly can. So staying in Jackson, you could probably see something down in these areas. You couldn't stand up in these areas and ever see the Milky Way through this mess, but you could be down here and see those. So I use Darkside Finder to find my locations and make sure that, one, I go for purple or gray if I have that opportunity. Some situations I don't. I had a group up in Ogden that wanted to learn how to do the Milky Way within an hour of their home, and the best I could give them was over here at the Causey Reservoir, and that's in green. But I chose it instead of where they wanted to go, Antelope Island, because over here, while it is lower light pollution on top of me, where the Milky Way was, it's looking through the giant, terrifying bloom of Salt Lake City. And so it had to wait until 3 a.m. for the Milky Way to be in this visible corridor of lower light pollution. If I had to look through any of this, I couldn't make it out. I couldn't see it. So we went out to the Causey Reservoir, and it ended up being pretty solid for being green. So don't rule out green areas. Just make sure that you're looking out over low light pollution spots. Okay, Darkside Finder. I'm pretty sure I nailed that with tons of information. There's not much to say, so hopefully all of it made sense. If you wanted a quick tip, go to the west. If you're in the United States, come out to the west. It's beautiful. We were at Crater Lake, and Crater Lake is amazing. And can I find Crater Lake easy? There it is. Look at Crater Lake. We had a beautiful sky out there, Kirk. Why? Because it's a large stretch of the second to best dark sky you can have. It's not this crazy dark black, but it's in an area where there's nothing nearby. It takes a very distant light of Klamath Falls to affect it. And so it was fantastic up at Crater Lake. So, any questions? Nothing has popped through, so I'm going to jump over to Clear Dark Sky. You want to go to a location, you've decided, hey, I'm going to go to Causey Reservoir. Will there be clouds? Or I'm going to go to Mir Lake. Will there be clouds? If you're in the United States, cleardarksky.com works for Canada, United States, and parts of Mexico. Outside of those areas, you guys need to use an app or a website called skippysky.com.au. I don't hate this website. It's just it doesn't have half the information that we have on clear dark sky, but it will tell you whether or not you have clouds. So quickly, let me show you. This is a picture of the total cloud cover percentage over this area in Germany. Now you can choose different areas like England. You can choose Poland and Hungary. The user interface experience of this site is terrible. It took me a while to figure out that those were even buttons. But just looking at the map, you can see reds and blues. In this case, it's not a light pollution scale. It's just telling you where cloud percentage is higher or lower. If it's under 10%, it's dark blue. Up to 50%, it's blue. And then above 50%, it goes from green, yellow, orange, red. And so all these areas up here, closer towards Belgium, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, they're highly cloud covered right now. But in France, in Spain, Portugal, you've got beautiful skies. You got beautiful skies right now according to July 15th at the last 6 hours. So this is predicting from now for 6 hours forward what's going to happen in the sky. So if you're in the United States, use cleardarksky.com. If you're in the European Union, you're over there in Australia, you can use skippysky.com.au to see 6 hours ahead. All right, best prediction. This area right here is so low on cloud cover. This is where I'm going to go. Say I was living in Barcelona. I wanted to come out here, take a train, go out to that area. That's your best opportunity. So this is how Skippy Sky works. But Clear Dark Sky, you'll see why you're going to be jealous of it very quickly. So you come to the first page. I'll just show you that again. Clear Sky Charts. Go to the Clear Sky Charts and then find your area. I'm going to use Utah, and you can see it here, or you can click on Map. And depending on your internet speed, this map may take a while to load. I have a fairly speedy internet, so it's no problem. On this map, I'm able to see all these pins, and what do these pins mean, and how do they work, and what's the situation. They're giving you actual border scale colors. It's saying this is Provo and Salt Lake. It's white and red and orange. But these weather stations where the information is given, they're out in blue and gray and black, light polluted areas. So quickly you can go to your area. Say you're in, let's go to Arizona. Say you're in Arizona and you want to quickly find a place out past Phoenix. You can look at all these pins quickly and say, oh, these are the lighter colors, the more towards blue. Let me choose that. Picket Post Mountain, Trailhead. I've been there. And you can click on your chart and see this detail. And at first, this probably seems overwhelming for what on earth is it telling you. So let's break it down. First off, it's only giving you from the time a couple hours before you are. So right now it's almost noon, and a couple hours before 8 a.m. And it's going every hour mark for a 24-hour clock. And at 23, it changes to 0 for Sunday, 23, 0, here's Monday. It really only gives you for about a day and a half each direction. So your day up until the next day, and then a half or a 5-6 hour period of the day after that. So people who have asked me, how do you know, or when are you going to know for Mir Lake? Is it Friday or Saturday? I won't know until late Wednesday night when it's here, Wednesday night, and Thursday's shown, and Friday. Really, I won't even see most of Friday to know. It'll probably be Thursday that I'm 100% certain what I'm going to deal with for weather. Hey, Redhead. Thanks, my area. You're welcome. I'm glad I picked Picket Post then. It's a beautiful spot and a quick spot to leave from Phoenix and get away from light pollution very quick. Just at this time of the year, the Milky Way is so far southeast, you're looking back into the light polluted areas, so it's a little tougher. But early season Milky Way, it's awesome. So here we go. We're seeing that at Picket Post Mountain, cloud cover, transparency, seeing, darkness, wind, humidity, temperature. Let's only focus on darkness and cloud cover. We can explain transparency and seeing another time, another day. You can always come down here and read what they're saying. Those are telling you. Darkest blue is perfect. Absolutely 0% clear. Anything lighter is cloud. So that's easy to understand. The sky is visible to cloud cover. There we go. If you're looking at going to picket post for the Milky Way, it says around 10 o'clock, it's kind of 60% covered. Well, which part of the sky is 60% covered? You're not going to know that. And so you can risk it. Say the hours after that we're getting clearer, I would say, yeah, try it out. See what happens. Maybe the 60% of the sky is away from where the Milky Way core is, and it'll make for a cool time lapse. Milky Way moving, clouds moving, really cool, dynamic, interesting scene. But in this situation, I would recommend not going to picket post because from the hours of 10 o'clock on, it just gets worse and worse. And so tonight, Sunday night, this is not the time to go because of the cloud cover is just way too bad, and the hours before and the hours after the full darkness period, it's looking like it's spotty at best. And so why risk it? Don't worry about it. Don't go in this situation. When you see the darkness level, this is just telling you when the moon is rising, basically astronomical periods and sunset period. And then it goes into astronomical twilight to full darkness. And so at 9 o'clock, full darkness transitions, and you can see that, hey, there's no moon. If there were a moon, it would be lit up like this all throughout. And you can see that every night the moon comes up later and later and later until it comes up only when the sun's up, and that's when it goes to a new moon period. Question just came through. Just an FYI, clear dark sky has never failed me. It's always correct. Serge is right. Now, it's only let me down with the 10% wispy clouds. When there is a 10% cover, you think, oh my gosh, look at how dark that blue is for 10% right here on 8 or 9 p.m. Or this is a.m. actually. 10% covered looks brilliant. And then you get there and you find out, depending on the location, those little wispy clouds are picking up tons of light pollution, or everything of that city over there is reflecting off of those clouds and ruining it. Or it's very thin. It didn't realize there would be any clouds. It shouldn't be. 10% chance of being covered. But then these thin wispy clouds come in and completely cover your sky, and an hour later they're gone. That's the only time it's ever let me down. Otherwise, it's always correct. It's always matched up. I have driven from here to Delta, past Delta to Notch Peak, and it told me clouds, clouds, clouds. 11 p.m., it was dark blue. Midnight, dark blue, all the way through the morning. And I was like, maybe that'll work out. Let's try it. The whole way down, we're driving, Brendan and I are going, and I'm complaining about the clouds. I'm worried. It literally was 11:01 when we could see Jupiter peek through the clouds. And then all of a sudden there was Orion. And all around us, it's just like the last cloud passed and it was perfect. It was brilliant. So clear dark sky is fantastic for helping you plan your hours. Let's just do another day so you can see another way to find out what the clouds are doing. And let's try somewhere here in Utah. Let's go to Mir Lake just to repeat the things that I've done. In this case, I might not have a pin directly over Mir Lake. In fact, Mir Lake is up here in the Uintas, and there aren't any pins except for this one way up here and this one down here. So which one do I use? In this area, weather comes from the southeast, southwest, and kind of goes over us. And so I kind of want to see what the weather's doing here and not up here. If I look at this one, I might see clear skies, but this area is being moved in on. And I can see hours earlier where weather and storm is starting from here better than I can from what's behind me. Depend on your area. Remember your wind patterns, everything that helps you. I don't know what to recommend other than choose the pin that's closest to where you're going to be and in a place that's not so after the fact with the weather pattern that it's going to be information that's too late. So let's use the Wolf Creek observing site to check it out. When it gives you these two lines, it's giving you basically the top two lines. Cloud cover and transparency, I think. And so just look at the top line and you're already seeing pretty good at night. There's the red line. Now this red line, it gets a little cloudy at night. Let's check out the details. So brilliant tonight, right at 10 o'clock. If I were to go up to the Wolf Creek observing site or anywhere in the Uintas, I'd feel pretty confident. Why? Because I have 6 hours in front of it and a whole day, practically 12 hours of clear skies after it. So I don't have that one big storm they're expecting to come upon me 2-3 hours earlier than expected. I've been out there sometimes where it said it's going to be great until about 5 a.m. And it kind of got bad starting at 3 a.m. It was just a little off. Not much, but a little off to ruin our trip because we showed up at 3 a.m. This right here tonight is showing perfect clear all the way from really 9 o'clock on. So I would definitely go up there tonight. I'm hoping for that this coming weekend. So our Mir Lake is beautiful. We have the whole night to work with. How's the moon? Well, it's going to get a little light around 2 a.m. I can see that that'll start affecting it. So my best times are from 11 p.m. through 1 a.m. So that's going to be pretty fantastic. Those are my hours to be there. Clouds are not going to ruin it. Last thing I'll tell you about this is that I'm at Mir Lake. I have water. How choppy is the water is kind of based on the wind. Looks like it's brilliant up until midnight tonight. And then it gets 6 to 11 mile per hour winds for a few hours. And then it goes back to 0 to 5. I'm hoping for 0 to 5, of course. I've been up there with 6 to 11 mile per hour winds, and we were still able to capture reflection in the water. So don't worry too much. Just don't go higher than that. Questions? Any questions come up? So this is cleardarksky.com, skippysky.com.au for those of you in Europe or in Australia. Darkside Finder for worldwide light pollution. It even gives you accurate representation of oil field burn-off that's happening up here in Russia. And so it gives you a quick idea of where you should go, how you plan it with PhotoPills, and you decide what the Milky Way looks like in Stellarium, or will there be an International Space Station up there? Or final thing, final question, okay, should I go tonight? I know the place looks cool. I know the Milky Way looks awesome. And I know where I want to stand to capture my image. So I have the Milky Way on the right side of that silo. But will there be clouds? Last thing you check before you go is cleardarksky.com. All right. No questions have come up while I was yammering on about all of that. So let me just give you guys a few more minutes. What time is it right now? 12:06. So we didn't go over by too much, and I'm open for questions right now. I have nothing else to add to this except that next week we'll be doing our which one did we plan for next week? Was it going to be composition? I think it was, because I think we're going to go more into the Google Earth aspect of planning your Milky Way shot and planning where to go. So I'm just looking at my notes. Yep, composition was lesson 2, and then we're going over settings, and then we're going over to camera gear. So from the next 3 Saturdays going forward at 11 a.m. my time, Mountain Time, I'll be doing this live webinar. I'm hoping next week I'll have a video camera of me, so you're not just listening to me talk while you look at a boring page. So let's just go over here. I'll go to Brendan's pictures you guys can look at. Here's a time lapse. I'm going to show you a time lapse of what it looks like when astronomical twilight ends. You can see how the image is getting lighter blue and the Milky Way is fading away. Did it make the Milky Way miserable to shoot? No, not necessarily, but you can see how much of the detail is gone. And so it's really perfect to stay in the full darkness period, and once astronomical twilight comes in, just go ahead and pack up and get some breakfast. All right, question from Nevada XTube. How would you use clear dark sky for sunset or sunrise? Okay, perfect. Basically, I'd take everything that I just looked for, but do it in the opposite. So I was saying a really bad time to go at Picket Post Mountain was when you were out there and those clouds were coming in. Let's see. Let's go back to Picket Post. I think it was that one. Yep. So tonight, not a great Milky Way. It's going to be cloudy around 3, 4, 5 a.m. But let me look and see how cloudy. I'm hovering my cursor over it, 80% covered, overcast. The times that I would avoid would be when it's completely overcast for hours on end around sunrise. It's just probably going to block everything. But if I have 80% or less, most likely I'm going to have some of those gaps and some really interesting dramatic skies. And so if I'm planning for a sunrise or a sunset, I'm checking the same thing. I'm like, okay, that is looking like it's a cloudy morning, but not fully overcast. Let's get out there. Have I done that enough? No, because I keep staying up late for astrophotography and I'm exhausted. So Frank Crispo says, sorry to jump yours, Kirk. So cloud cover and darkness are the only two important parts of the clear sky chart. Can we ignore the rest? For Milky Way photography, you absolutely can. Will you have a better conditions with transparency and seeing that is better? Just the real quick information. Transparency is telling you that there's moisture in the air. So transparency is a measurement of how much transparency through that air is there, and it is worse based on water vapor. And then seeing is based on turbulence in the air, which is basically, how do they phrase it? Like if you're looking at a planet with bad seeing, you're gonna see like you're gonna see the planet look like it's under a bunch of rippling water. Now it's not because of moisture, it's a temperature thing, and the temperature issues cause turbulence, and then you have bad seeing. So if you're gonna use a telescope and you want to look at planets, make sure your seeing is blue. If you want to see low contrast objects, something that's like a galaxy deep in the distance or a nebula, you're going to want your transparency to be crisp, that you're not getting all that water vapor causing issues seeing the low contrast objects. But for Milky Way, as long as the cloud's gone, you have such a wide field view of the sky, you're fine. You don't need it to be anything but dark or cloud cover clear. Just transparency and seeing are bonuses, and if the transparency and seeing's even better, you will notice that just slightly. I believe that's what Brendan was experiencing. If I pulled up our light pollution map, I have gone with Brendan to areas throughout this very dark sky and done Milky Way photography. But we were up at Crater Lake, which wasn't in the dark. It was in this area. But he looked up and he was just amazed. He said it was the best Milky Way sky he's ever seen. Why? It was the highest elevation we had been at in that dark sky location, so the transparency and seeing conditions were better, being higher elevation. And the fact that I think just that night, it was fantastically clear on all around. Low issues of seeing and low issues of transparency. It was just awesomely clear. And so to him, it felt amazing. But have any of my Milky Way shots not turned out because transparency or seeing were poor? No, nope. As long as cloud cover is blue and the darkness is perfect, you don't have a problem. Kirk said earlier, I found a weather site that does really cool graphical representations of cloud cover, including cloud altitudes. Hey, Kirk, share that link. That'd be awesome to check it out. And it must be Meteor Blue. And then put a blue dot. Oh, maybe he's just trying to keep it from being spammy. So meteorblue.com. And that'll be the awesome weather site that he's recommending. You just go to the Meteogram tab. The Meteogram tab. Okay. Hey, Kirk, let's not go too far and say Oregon is cooler than Utah, because last time I've been to Oregon, you can't see anything when you drive for hours on end, and your car's engines get eaten up. And so I don't think I love Oregon more than Utah, although the whole entire coast of Oregon, oh, that's so beautiful. I'm not going to dismiss how awesome Oregon is. Utah is pretty fantastic, but if you live here and can travel to all of these areas, it's a kind of perfect headquarters to have. So any other questions? We're going to close up this live stream here. What time is it right now? It is 12:13. Let's just close it at 12:15. Call it good. So there's an hour and 15-minute video for those of you to watch the replay. So you have 2 minutes to get your question into me. Thank you for watching. Join me next week for a composition discussion where I talk about some bad experiences I've had with the Milky Way and how come the shot didn't turn out even though the sky was awesome. On top of the fact that there are issues with where I put objects in the scene or where I was standing and how I captured, just all these composition things to consider, as well as planning your composition using Google Earth and finding locations using pictures online and deciding how to shoot a Milky Way in a place you've never been. So we'll go over that next week. And yeah, Utah is warmer than Oregon, so technically Oregon is cooler. Nice job, Kirk. Pun. Win. Thanks, Nevada. Thanks for joining me today. Sorry that there wasn't any camera to see me, but you got to see my hands and my knuckles. That was pretty fantastic, I bet. And Susan Colosimo, thank you. Thank you for joining me. I'm glad that you've been here. Frank, thanks so much. If you guys have any questions, feel free to message me in comments on our YouTube videos or just go straight to our email. Go to info@photogadventures.com. Email me any questions. Find us on our Facebook page. Any eclipse tips? We should do a special eclipse episode after all of these. Honestly, I haven't captured a solar eclipse myself yet. And so I can't give anything from personal experience, but I've been doing a lot of research. I'm doing a lot of stuff that's going to be helpful. So let's do an eclipse episode at the end of this to get everyone ready. Hey, thanks, Kurt. And thanks, John. And yeah, the only thing I'd say in your eclipse tips that I can say right now is make sure you have a filter on your lens so that you can look straight at it. And then you want a long telephoto lens so you can get a really close shot of that. My landscape photography for eclipse is going to be the scenery, the people, and how the transition happens from normal sunlight to a shadow. And so you're going to see a time lapse from us on our photog adventure. Redhead, thanks. Thanks for joining us from Arizona. Yeah, John, I agree. It's going to be really cool. So I'm going to have one camera trained right on it with the tracking mount telescope that's zooming right in on the solar eclipse so I can see that transition happen on top of seeing how the cloud covers here. So it's going to be awesome. And Susan says, yes, please. So we're definitely going to do it. Let's have that discussion after all of these lessons. Join me for them. Thank you again. I'm Aaron King. Watch our videos. If you ever need a podcast, we're also doing podcasts. Greetings from Europe. Hey, Muktinch. I can't pronounce that very. I'm sure that's a couple words in one, but you're welcome. I used to live in the Netherlands and I lived in Italy, so I know your challenges of a night sky. But man, beautiful, beautiful place, Europe, no matter where you go practically. So I love it. Let me close out. Listen to our podcast. If you need a podcast, photogadventures.com. I'll put a link somewhere. I'm updating our website, so all that information will be more clear on that when I get through it. Thanks for joining me, and I will talk to you guys next Saturday right at this time, 11 a.m. See you guys.